Spotlight Cash review time. A lot of this is data mined information, so subject to change. If any of it changes, check the pinned comment underneath this video for updates on that. My rating system, as always, is going to be between 1 and 5 stars. We'll talk about why we give the ratings in each of the sections. Let's go ahead and jump right to it, shall we? Kick things off, our next Spotlight Cash, running from January 16th until the 23rd, contains Meek, a new Direct-to-Series 4 card release, Annihilus, an existing Series 5 cards, and the Phoenix Force, a recently downgraded Series 4 card. I'm going to give this first Spotlight week a fairly weak rating of just 2 out of 5 stars. The second star here is based purely on the fact that Annihilus is a Series 5 card that defines the decks inside of which it's played. If you're someone who really wants to play with Sentry or you love Hood like myself, Annihilus is definitely a must-have card to leverage those tools to their greatest effect. The other two cards running in this week leave a good bit to be desired. Meek and Phoenix Force are both not only Series 4 cards, meaning you can acquire them cheaper with collector's tokens than other releases, but I don't think either of them are really format powerhouses. The Phoenix Force is at least a novel effect, and it defines the deck that it's played in, i.e. meaning it's not replaceable. That being said, none of those decks are really tearing up the ladder, and they've never had impressive win rates or cube gains. Meek is obviously a card that has yet to release, but on pure speculation, I'd be surprised if this card was good at face value, and they did just buff Kingpin, which I think is going to put a little bit of a cramp in his style, even if he ever did start to take off. Our next Spotlight Cash, running from January 23rd through the 30th, contains the Grandmaster as a new Direct-to-Series 5 card, Loki as a returning Series 5 card, and the Hitmonkey as a recently downgraded Series 4 card. Overall, I'm going to give this Spotlight Cash week a fairly middle-of-the-road rating at 3 out of 5 stars. Loki is still Series 5, but he and his supporting cast have received a number of nerfs at this point, and while I would wager his deck is still fairly competitive, it's definitely not the meta-dominating force that it once was. Hitmonkey likewise spent some time at the top of the metagame a number of months back, but since then, not only was Hitmonkey adjusted, but the metagame kind of become more hostile to this type of effect. Things like Storm, Professor X, and Alioth are all popular and powerful cards that make it difficult for you to play a bunch of things out on the last turn of the game without being punished. At face value, Grandmaster's effect seems like it could go either way in terms of power level, but it is a Series 5 card, i.e. more expensive to get with collector's tokens, and it is what contributes to this cash being 3 stars overall. Moving on to our final Spotlight Cash week of the January season, running from January 30th through February 6th, we have Beta Ray Bill releasing into Series 5, we have Galactus perpetually Series 5 Big Bag, and we have Elsa Bloodstone current Series 5 card. This week is going to be our first Spotlight Cash in this review with a perfect 5 out of 5 score. Not only are all of the cards in this week Series 5 cards, but Galactus is a card that will never downgrade to lower series, even with the quarterly downgrades we're going to see moving ahead. Meaning, if you want to play with his powerful and unique effect, you're going to need to either open on a week that he's in a cache or pony up 6,000 collector's tokens. Elsa Bloodstone isn't necessarily the powerhouse that she once was, but I think she's a card that's a little bit more playable than her current play rate and win rate would imply on the public trackers. I also think that even if she's not in the greatest spot as of the recording of this, she's a single OTA away from something in that kind of Kitty, Elsa, Angela package from being buffed into being a relevant metagame card again. Beta Ray Bill is a card that could go either way in terms of power level, but I think it has a natural home in that Thor Jane Foster shell that we see often with Werewolf or Lockjaw, and I think it will be a fun and reasonable card on top of that. Up next, we have our first Spotlight Cash of the February season, running from February 6th through February 13th. It contains Supergiant, new card releasing into Series 5, Darkhawk, a returning Series 4 card, and Zabu, a returning Series 4 card. Overall, I'm going to give this Spotlight Cash a fairly strong rating of 4 out of 5 stars, despite the fact that it contains 2 Series 4 cards. Darkhawk and Zabu have both long been format staples, contained in various different metagame powerhouses off and on over the entire time that they've been released, and they are excellent pickups for your collection that will unlock and enable you to play new decks that you simply cannot play without them. Supergiant feels like it could be more of a niche card as opposed to the generalist that Zabu and Darkhawk are. That being said, I think it'll be an excellent tech card in the right metagames, since turning off your opponent's key play on turn 5, something like Leech or MODOK, could easily be the difference between winning and losing a match of Marvel Snap. Our next Spotlight Cache, running from February 13th through February 20th, contains new Direct to Series 4 card Cull Obsidian, returning Series 4 card Nimrod, and perpetually Series 5 Big Bad Thanos. I'm going to give this Spotlight Cache week a fairly low rating of just 2 out of 5 stars. Not only are Nimrod and Cull Obsidian Series 4 cards, but Nimrod doesn't really see any competitively relevant play, and Cull Obsidian, while I expect to be playable, I don't expect it to be a metagame powerhouse that you need to get your hands on to be competitive. Thanos, as of the recording of this, is currently dominating the metagame. Hopefully later on that's going to be less true. That being said, it is a perpetually Series 5 big bag that pokes in and out of the metagame, and he's definitely the biggest draw to opening caches this week if you're missing him. The Mad Titan's never going to get cheaper, being perpetually Series 5, so it's spotlights or tokens if you want to play with them. Our next cache runs from February 20th through the 27th and contains Corvus Glade, a new Series 5 release, Gladiator, a returning Series 5 card, and X-23, an additional returning Series 5 card. This Spotlight week is getting my second perfect 5 out of 5 score. Not only does it contain 3 Series 5 cards, but both Gladiator and X-23 are played in powerful and potent metagame decks and can slot into some off-meta things as well, neither of them being one-trick ponies. Corvus Glade is going to be a little bit more narrow effect, i.e. exactly discard decks that want to accelerate out additional energy. That being said, he's going to be very unique, so I would expect any deck that wants to play Corvus Glade likely won't be able to replace him therein. Our final Spotlight Cache of the February season, running from February 27th through March 5th, contains Proxima Midnight as a new Direct to Series 5 release, MODOK as a returning Series 4 card, and Dakin as another returning Series 4 card. This Spotlight Cache earns a middle-of-the-road rating of 3 out of 5 stars. If you're someone who's a potential discard enjoyer who doesn't have their hands on MODOK and Dakin yet, this is an easy must-open week. I think personally, I do like when they gear up Spotlight Cache weeks like this where all the cards kind of synergize together because it makes it a clean cut. Do I like the strategy? If yes, I should open and get these cards, or maybe I don't, and then it's an easy skip. It also means if you're a discard enjoyer who's looking to pick up Proxima Midnight, you potentially get some sweet variant art for MODOK and Dakin, other cards you're likely to play with her along the way. Looking to our first Spotlight Cache week in the March season, running from March 5th through the 12th, we have new to Series 5 card Pixie, returning Series 4 card Mobius M. Mobius, and returning Series 4 card Spider-Ham. I'm going to give the Spotlight Cache week a fairly strong 4 out of 5 stars, despite the fact that it contains 2 Series 4 releases in it. Both Mobius M. Mobius and Spider-Ham are cards that see play across a variety of decks, and Mobius in particular is a potent tech card that's a must-have tool under the right metagame circumstances. Looking to the new release in this week, not only is Pixie Series 5, but Pixie is going to be a card that you build your entire deck around, similar to something like Mr. Negative, meaning that if you want to play a deck that contains Pixie, you have to have her, or that deck is simply not going to function. Our next Spotlight Cache, running from March 12th through the 19th, contains new to Series 5 card Mockingbird, returning Series 5 card Miss Marvel, and Man-Thing as a returning Series 4 card. I'm also giving this Spotlight Cache week a fairly strong rating at 4 out of 5 stars. A lot of that strength is based on the fact that Miss Marvel, I think, is likely to remain a format powerhouse. Despite her recent small nerf, she still offers 14 points worth of stats for just 4 energy when you meet the right circumstances for her, which is just an incredible rate. Similarly, Mockingbird is a card that reads as incredibly powerful, offering 9 points worth of stats for the low price of free under the right conditions. Man-Thing's only a Series 4 card and it's definitely not a format staple and is the weak link in this Spotlight Cache week if you're looking for one. Our next cache, running from March 19th through the 26th, contains new to Series 5 card Cannonball, returning Series 4 card Kitty Pryde, and returning Series 4 card Ghost Spider. Overall, this is the only Spotlight Cache week in this review that I'm going to give a terrible score of 1 out of 5 stars to. Few different reasons for the low rating for this Spotlight week. The first is obviously we've got 2 Series 4 cards, and neither of those Series 4 cards are particularly metagame defining. The second is that while Cannonball is tentatively slated in the data files to be a Series 5 card release, I would wager based on the power level that this card is going to have, it might also release direct to Series 4. This card is releasing far enough out that we often see some of the series go up or down of new cards in those data files. And even if he does stay at Series 5, if his text box and stat line don't change, I really don't expect a lot from him. Our last Spotlight Cache today, running from March 26th through April 2nd, contains War Machine as a new Direct to Series 5 card, Silk as a returning Series 5 card, and the Silver Samurai as a returning Series 4 card. This final Spotlight Cache is going to close us out with a strong rating of 4 out of 5 stars. Both the returning cards in this cache week are cards that see play in powerful and competitive meta Marvel Snap decks, and War Machine is likely going to be a new tech tool that'll be valuable to have if we ever get into a lockdown metagame like we've often seen develop over the last few months of Snap. Before I sign off here today, something else I wanted to talk about that's related to the contents of these Spotlight Caches indirectly is the cards that are absent from them, i.e. Series 4 and 5 cards that are excellent candidates for spending your collector's tokens on because they're not forecasted to have another way to get them in the upcoming months. The first of these cards is Echo, who's proven herself as a powerful utility card under the right metagame circumstances. She lines up fantastically into opposing copies of Miss Marvel and dictates where Professor X can be played out onto the board, while also giving Living Tribunal decks a hell of a time. She's only Series 4 now, and she is an excellent pickup with your tokens, in my opinion. Next up, we have Nico Minaru, who is a phenomenally versatile card. She appears in metagame powerhouses like Destroy and Bounce, but she also has varying utility in lots of random brews and other more off the beaten path things like Cerebro 2 that are just a ton of fun to play. Up next, we have Iron Lad as an excellent choice to be picking up with collector's tokens. This card is a mainstay inside of not only combo decks that want an extra look to find a key card like Living Tribunal on the last turn, but also generally good stuff decks playing Zabu that wouldn't mind an extra chance to roll another copy of Rockslide or put a second Darkhawk onto the table. Finally, we have my own namesake in Jeff the Baby Landshark, who is simply one of the best 2 energy cards in Marvel Snap. His ability to get into hard-to-reach places allows you to mitigate location variance and contest things like flooding or Professor X paths after the fact. Jeff also has deck building synergy with things like Kraven and Angela, among other things, making him an excellent candidate to pick up if he's missing in your collection. Thanks for making it to the end. As always, if you enjoyed my breakdown on this topic, be sure to snap that like button. Also, if you're watching this at some point in February or March, be sure to check the pinned comment underneath this video in case there are any corrections issued based on the data mine information that it was created using. I'd also love feedback on the collector's token section that I added at the very end. Is that something useful that you'd like to see in videos like this in the future? As always, thanks for watching all the way through. Happy snapping, folks.